Hello everybody, my name is Cheesy, and today we're going to be going through my review of Elden Ring. So far, I'm about 150 hours into Elden Ring, and just finished New Game Plus Plus. I absolutely ate this game up, but I'm not shy to admit that I struggled to get into the game. I had never played a From Software game, and grew up with games like Skyrim and New Vegas. It also didn't help that I did paramount to zero research prior to pre-ordering the game. So, taking that into consideration, this review will be from the perspective of a completely new player to this genre. So, let's begin. After taking that initial lift out of the tutorial area and opening up that door, I was stunned to see the absolutely gorgeous landscape before me. I sat there for a minute waiting to see a quest objective or some sort of guidance, but what I got was a man called Vare, who hurt my feelings. Naturally, I had to defend my honor, and proceeded to get humbled. I then proceeded to make my way to the church, conveniently placed in my line of sight, and found a site of grace. I then made my way to the first catacomb, just a bit further north, and got the true Souls experience. After spending an hour making my way through the dungeon, I finally came face to face with the Erdtree Burial Watchdog. And die. A lot. Again and again and again. And finally, after some 3 hours of humiliating defeat, I finally took him, or it, out. In that moment, I felt so happy and proud and truly felt I'd accomplished something. I decided to end my first session on a high note and call it after playing for about 6 hours. What I learned from this experience was twofold. Firstly, this game is hard. I mean, there are definitely ways of making it easier, but we'll get to that later. This game put my nigh non-existent skills to the test. It was upsetting that I had died over and over and over again and made seemingly no progress when in like 3 hours, in a game like Skyrim, I could be killing Ulfric at that time. That is when I simultaneously realized that this game was a completely different experience. I also realized that the feeling I had felt after defeating that first boss was a sense of accomplishment and achievement I had never gotten from a video game before. It was at that moment that I recognized the true value of a Souls game. Now, the rest of this review is going to be going over more specific themes and ideas about the game. One of the things that stands out the most in my eyes is the world itself. Elden Ring is the first game I've ever played that I wanted to explore for exploration's sake. There are so many hidden quests, items, dungeons, bosses, and more that many people would probably simply miss just by going through the motions. The allure of hidden booty wasn't the only thing that prompted me to go through every nook and cranny though. By taking random paths and going through random caves, it's easy to get taken to a place with a great view of the map. It's from these spots that you realize how big the world is. It is simply amazing to be able to see so much of the map and to see where you're going to go next. Not only that, but you can see the diverse landscape and cool new points of interest. Having the freedom to go anywhere from the scarlet-infested Caelid to the swampy lake of Liurnia is part of what makes this game so amazing. In addition to the landscape within the game, however, is the physical map where you can travel between multiple sites of grace. Through this map, you can place markers and different emblems, even have a quick bar where you can travel to specific sites of grace with only a couple presses of a button. This is almost a perfect system, but this is where one of my critiques will come in. It can be incredibly hard to know the next step when it comes to quests, or knowing what you've already done, and so I think that the addition of a quest log of some sort would really help to make the whole game feel a bit more cohesive. One of the things that helps to balance this out, however, is FromSoft's expert environmental storytelling. There is not much lore out in the open, you really have to find it. There are cool parallels and interesting bits, like when you find the amulet that reduces fall damage, it just makes sense. In addition, many weapons, amulets, and armors also have lore hidden in the descriptors, and there's just so much you can learn just by looking a little bit closer at the world. All things considered, FromSoft has done an excellent job in crafting a believable and elaborate world for us to explore. Now, Elden Ring has a very cool combat system of locking onto specific enemies and reacting according to what they do. This makes it easier to fight against bosses. Souls games are known for their challenging and interesting bosses, and Elden Ring has certainly brought a lot to the table. There are many very cool and diverse story bosses you have to fight, and many more you can find on your own. A very minor thing that I have seen the community gripe about, however, is the reusable bosses. I think it makes sense that there would be more Erdtree avatars or Crucible Knights throughout the game, though. Without going too in-depth regarding the multiple bosses in the game, the idea that there would be a specifically dedicated guardian for a sacred tree, or the inclusion of elite knights scattered throughout the area in the game makes sense to me. So I don't think that this is FromSoft cutting corners, but actually a part of their great environmental storytelling. So asking questions about why you can find these people here can lead you to make your own inferences into the world of Elden Ring and the lore therein. Another note I have is that I just love the fact that you can find a boss early on in the game, and then once you proceed later in the game, you can find them all over the place. Like, it does wonders for your own sense of character progression and achievement. In regards to achievement, there are some ways to cheese a game that I'd like to talk about. I'd like to preface this by saying that cheesing the boss is totally fine and counts toward killing the boss just like any other way. Using Comet Azure or a fully leveled Mimic tier is just fine. If you finish the game doing that, then congrats, you beat Elden Ring. I do believe that using such methods can take a lot of the challenge out of the game, but I mean, you bought the game, and as such, you earn the right to play it however you want. In terms of cheese, I already mentioned Comet Azure and Mimics here, but there are many concepts about what cheesing is. Many considered mage builds cheating. Cheating is similar though, because they are able to trivialize certain bosses that melee characters would have a more challenging time with. While this may be true, there are just as many bosses that get in their face and make mage builds cry. So no. What I consider the biggest form of cheesing, quotations, is simply overleveling, which is such a silly thing to get mad at people for. I mean, I didn't fight Margit until I was like way past level 50 because there's just so much to do everywhere else beforehand. I even slew a certain horse riding demigod with gravity powers, wink wink, before Margit, who is quite a bit more challenging. Elden Ring is an open world RPG title, and as such, leveling yourself up to the level you feel comfortable playing at is just fine. Like I mentioned before, you earn the right to play the game when you bought it. People who got it gifted, however, disregard everything I just said. But in all seriousness, don't listen to the veterans who try to diminish your wins just because you didn't do a challenge run. This actually brings me to the next point I wanted to talk about, which is the community itself. I'll keep this short. I feel like the vast majority of the community is supporting and endorses whatever playstyle you use to play the game. There is, unfortunately, a rather vocal minority who might try to discount you in the way you play the game, but I just say simply ignore them. Play how you want. I would definitely say join some Elden Ring groups on like Facebook or Instagram and like meet some like-minded gamers who simply want to enjoy an amazing game just like you. It can be really cool to see what other people have to say about it. And there are just a couple more points I wanted to go after, and I'm very sorry if I've rambled a bit here and there. I have a very specific script I'm trying to adhere to, but there are just some things I feel like need to be said in order to encourage and foster the same love for the game that I have for all of you guys. So just bear with me a little bit longer. So DLC, I feel like DLC for this game is almost a given. With a massive success Elden Ring has had on the gaming community, they could easily milk this game for all it's worth, which is quite a bit, to be truthful. However, FromSoft isn't EA or Activision. You can count on relevant DLCs that will add to the overall game and be worth the extra money. I personally can't wait for more Elden Ring content to come out, and I'm willing to pay pretty much whatever price. Now, before I give my final verdict, I felt it might be prudent to show some more or less professional reviews. These reviews might hold a little more weight than my review, but I have a better name, so I'd say I win. Well, here goes. IGN and GameSpot both gave Elden Ring a perfect 10 out of 10, while Metacritic gave it a near perfect 96%. And for good reason. Elden Ring is simply one of the best games to come out within the last decade, or maybe even ever. Between a brilliantly developed and immersive world, a vast collection of weapons and armors, and a highly rewarding playthrough, Elden Ring simply blows its competition out of the water. Did you know Horizon Forbidden West came out? Me neither. And that's nothing against the game at all. I enjoyed the first Horizon game quite a bit. Elden Ring is just another beast entirely. I was going to avoid giving this game a definite score because I wanted the points and evidence to be enough for you to draw your own conclusion, and so I won't. I will, however, recommend that if this game sounds remotely interesting to you, I would recommend you give it a try. A double thumbs up from me. So go ahead, consider joining me and the other 300,000 players on Steam alone for right now for one of the games that you'll ever play. Now, as many of you may have noticed, this is my first video on the channel. If you've made it this far, I congratulate you. This video went from 5 minutes to whatever it is post-editing. I would also humbly ask that if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give me a sub. It's a click for you, but it would mean the world to me. If there are any other games you'd like me to review or more Elden Ring content you'd like to see, go ahead and send some comments my way. I will respond to every single comment, I promise. And with that being said, I think it's time I say farewell. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.